I'm so excited. Today I have a special guest by the name of Naasiha. She is a wellness and mindset coach, and we are going to be talking about childhood conditioning, how to unlearn some childhood conditioning, and then how to rebuild and start all over again and make some new recordings with our beautiful selves. Let's get into it. I am Dr. Zen Johnson. Welcome to Unlearning Life as We Know It. I believe that we all deserve to be happy and that we have the ability to unlearn the old ways, learn new ways, and grow to become the greatest version of ourselves. Start your journey to a happier life right now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I am so excited today. I have Naasiha here. She is a mindset coach, a wellness coach, a health coach. She does a lot of different things. And today she's joining me to discuss childhood trauma and conditioning and how we're going to unlearn some of those childhood conditionings and relearn a new way of living and moving forward with our lives. So hello, Naasiha. Speak a little bit more about yourself. Let us all know.
Hi, Zen. Thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity. First of all, I'm so happy to be here today and have this conversation with you, which is very, very close to my heart. But before we get into that, so to all the listeners out there, I am Naasiha, and I am a mindset and a wellness coach, and I'm also a part of health coaching industry where I help people with nutrition, and I call myself a personal wellness designer because I believe in holistic wellness, and I think it all starts from the mind. And I have a little problem with the way mental health is overused. The term mental health is being so overused everywhere, and somehow when you overuse something, you lose it starts to lose its value, and everybody is suddenly becoming an expert. But I think for me, it's very important that when I get help in terms of my mental health, I more than a professional, yes, a professional is very important, but more than a professional, I would really want to get that kind of help from somebody that I can talk to without judgment, somebody that I can connect with, and somebody who knows what they are doing, and somebody who can actually guide me along my journey. And that's how I have taken my help. And since we're talking about childhood conditioning, it's very, very important that we have so many beautiful healers out there who speak about inner child healing, and but when all of them are talking about inner child healing, but what does the inner child need, and what are the conditions that the inner child has been living with, and how do we overcome, and how is it impacting in our life? So I would like to talk about all of this because it's very near and dear to my heart personally. So I'm very excited about today's conversation between the both of us. Thank you so much again.
Oh, of course. I am so excited as well. So let's dig into it. Let's just start off with the basics. What is childhood conditioning?
So when we speak about childhood conditioning, right? As a child, when you're growing up, you learn everything, you absorb everything from, the first point of contact are your parents. As a absolute toddler, the only point of contact that you have are parents, and then you go to school, and then you learn things there. You are exposed to a little extra people, people of your age, people who are your teachers, and then when you grow up, till you reach the stage of teenagers and everything, your environment basically, and they have a very, very deep impact on how your thoughts, your behaviors, your emotions, and they sort of give a definition to all of this. And this results in the beliefs that you form as a child, So we, as you know, to give a very, very basic example, as kids, all of us are taught, stranger danger as kids, right?
Yeah.
And all of us teach that to our children. That's because we want to give them the belief that a stranger is not very safe. It's not a safe place for them. And so as they are growing up, they grow up with the belief that strangers are dangerous. Now, certain kids, what they do is, as a child, certain children, what they do is they really take on that belief, and for a very, very long time, they know there is a point where they know that, okay, now I'm moving into a teenager stage, I'm moving into an adulthood stage, and this belief of stranger danger, I have to tread cautiously, and I have to, even today, even as an adult. I don't, as my first instinct is never to trust a stranger. And, I will tread very, very cautiously of how can I connect with that person. But as adults, we over years, we learn through experiences of who, what person is. But, it's a belief system that children grow up with. And that's a very basic example I'm saying, and which is necessary as kids, right? So there are a lot of necessary beliefs that we give to the children. But as children, based on the experiences that they face, be it as a kid, even before they go to school, or once they go to school, the experiences that like I was personally bullied in school. So I had formed the conditioning that I cannot make friends easily. I cannot have a lot of friends, and so that's why I was this very, very nerdy kid who was always in books, and the more I did that, I was bullied even more. And I was made fun of the way I dress. So I started having insecurities the way and then when I reached my puberty stage, I was made fun of my weight, because I suddenly put on weight after I reached my puberty stage. And then that sort of gave me the belief that I'm not good looking, or people look at me in a very different way. All of these reaches, to a conditioning that we subconsciously form as children. And somehow when we are, moving to the stage of adulthood, the same conditioning starts to subconsciously impact your daily life decisions. And I can speak so much more about this, but basically that is what is childhood conditioning. And we'll see how we are going to move forward with this.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that childhood conditioning, like you said, it starts from home, right? So your parents maybe are the first ones that start conditioning the mindset, but also where it ends up, it's internal conditioning. It's also what you have told yourself, right? So it's partly your environment that you grew up around, but it's also partly, like, I have to point at myself. It's also me. It's what I have conditioned myself to believe at this point as well, too, right? So it's a lot of things that you have to kind of start breaking into from what you've been told and then what you've told yourself, right? Am I getting that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes,
all right.
yes.
So how do you know if some of your learnings are positive or negative? Like, how do you start to define that and look at that in your life as an adult, right? So let's skip to, we understand what happened at the childhood level where it was all created, but now as an adult, how do you start to identify what is a positive and what's a negative from that, that conditioning that you've gained, and figure out what needs to be kind of unlearned?
Oh, that's a beautiful thought. First of all, I will say, and unlearning has been, that's why I love your podcast, first of all, because we are unlearning every day as an adult, and especially for childhood conditioning, right? Unlearning is the key. But how do we do that, and how do we differentiate between the good and the bad conditioning? Is, you very beautifully mentioned that it is partly environmental and then partly self-talk. So as kids, we didn't have a lot of control over our thoughts, and I think subconsciously we don't really understand how we create these beliefs, but we grow up with those beliefs. But once we become adults, right, then we do have control over our thoughts. We do have control over how we can, rewire the self-talk that we do to ourselves to overcome those beliefs. And but not many people are emotionally well to do this, even as adults. They don't know how to rewire. And even if they consciously try, even for me, when I started my journey of rewiring my childhood conditioning in so many levels, I did struggle a lot. It was challenging. Why? Because you are impacted by it for so many years. And the thing is, I didn't even know that I had that belief, right?
Right.
I didn't.
You're just
I
living
never
it. You're just
living
living
it.
it.
Yes.
It's a part of you. So you don't even,
Yes.
it's your makeup. It's your makeup.
Yes.
Yeah. I get that.
Exactly. And the thing is, first of all, I needed to have the awareness that this is a very, very deep rooted belief inside me. And how do I uproot this belief? And why do I need to make the decision of uprooting this belief? Is because how is that belief impacting my daily life, from my job opportunities, in my career, in my personal relationships, in my professional relationships? And this is all external, yeah, but internally, am I sleeping well? Am I eating well? Am I enjoying the bounty of nature around me? Am I doing things that I love to do?
Right.
And when I started asking all of these questions to myself, that's when I realized that there's something inside my belief system that is stopping me from enjoying myself, or being in a very grounded contact with myself, and also helping myself, first of all, move forward and then thrive. Why is it that certain, like for me, because I grew up as a bully child, I became very sensitive. So anybody would say something to me, I would sort of latch on to that event, and it takes me a longer time to move on. And I dwell in those thoughts, and then I sort of beat myself up. And I never realized why I did that. I thought that was a normal human behavior. But when I understood, and I had the awareness that this is not normal behavior. This is not, and I think normal is a very loosely used word. But for me, I work with the belief system that every human being is different, and so for me, that's a behavior that didn't help me grow. I think every human being has to be in a constant state of growth. And when I say constant state of growth, I mean emotionally, mentally, physically, no matter what you do in your life, it's as long as, even you make your interpersonal relationships with the purpose of growth. So when I realized that I'm being stagnant emotionally, mentally, that's when I realized that there's something blocking me. And that's when I know that sort of belief was bad for me. Certain beliefs are good, right? Certain beliefs, like I was given the belief system that sugar is not very good for your health. But then I like that belief system. That's a conditioning that was given to me. I think I was 6 years old when my father told me that, diabetes is a genetic disorder, and we are all very, very strongly connected to diabetes because all of your four grandparents, your 3 grandparents have diabetes. So you need to be very, very careful with how you take care of your body. That's a conditioning my father gave to me since I was 6 years old. So for me, sugar was something. But he never gave me the fear of sugar, right? He told me, enjoy it once in a while, but be very mindful of how much sugar you consume. And he gave it to me as a kid. So that's a good part of conditioning. And as I grew, I did overindulge sometimes. But then I knew when I had to pull back. And And that's one of the things that helped me understand when I can manage this belief, a positive belief that was for me, when I could manage it in a way that I created a balance where, now it's okay to let go a little while and enjoy your ice cream. And now it is, no, Naasiha, you need to pull back. And, I have that self-talk with myself. I was like, when I can do it for something so physical as food, right?
Yeah.
Why can't I do it with emotions? And that was a light bulb moment in my life. And that's when I realized that, there are some really negative conditioning that we grew up with. Like for me, my strongest was that I'm not worthy, and nobody can love me. And I had to break out of that conditioning. And once I did that, it was a journey how I did that. But once I did that, the kind of people that entered my life it's beyond bounds. I can say beautiful people. I was able to create space for so many beautiful people in my life.
Oh my goodness.
And that sort of built up much more beautiful belief systems within me.
Yeah. Okay. You hit on so many great points. Okay. So I'm trying to just think back. So first off, I love the fact that you said one of the signs is that first off, you should always be growing. And if you find that you're getting into a space where you are stagnant, that means that's probably a point where you need to reevaluate your beliefs, right? So that's like a little tip there. Like, okay, if I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to, be a better person, spiritually in whatever way it is. And if you're finding that there's just this wall, right, that's kind of like, well, why won't these great people come into my life? Like I'm looking for them, I'm asking for them, whatever it may be, right, that you're wanting, and you're wondering, why is this space not being like created? That may be a time to look at your belief system. And because also you have to be very careful with belief systems, because it also it's linked to being very judgmental, right? Because if your belief system is this one specific thing, then you're probably judging the next person or the next group of people that believe in something totally different, right? Which once you have that whole judgment thing going on, that definitely can build walls where you're not able to grow and learn because of a very basic belief system. So that's one of the things I heard. Another thing that I heard you say was that once you did clear the space, once you got through, and it was a journey, right? But you got to figuring out what you needed to start unlearning within your beliefs, then a whole new world that you wanted opened up for you. So that was like the congratulations, clap, clap, clap. You made it. Here you go. And that gave you validation, I'm sure, that, okay, I made the right moves. And also, another point that you mentioned, you hit, there were so many gems in just that in that section of discussion, but you also said if your beliefs are like at an extreme, you said the word extreme, right? And using the example of sugar, and it's like, okay, it's about having boundaries and like a balance approach, right?
Balance.
Right, right. So you can believe in something, but it's like having a balance where you're not so deep in it where you're judging the next, or where you're not experiencing, happiness in this way, even though you know that you want to, but you have this belief like holding you back of what someone has told you that you should or should not do, that it's okay to like kind of peek out the box and see, what that other world is like. So just making sure that you're not at the extreme level of things. And so this leads me to ask you, though, you said that for you, your biggest unlearning for you was the fact that you had a recording in your mind. I like to say recordings because that's what it is to me. You had recordings in your mind that you were unworthy and not deserving of love, but then you went on your journey, and it was quite a journey to unlearn that. So what did that journey look like? Like, where did you start? How did you figure out that I need a new recording, and how did you go about doing it?
Oh, that takes me back to the journey that I absolutely love today I can say it was a beautiful journey. And I think it's still, all of us are in this transient phase of life. And when I started, the thing is, I would like to go back to the starting point where, first of all, I didn't know that I had this. I love the word recording. I didn't know it. So as a kid, as a child, and again, that's another thing that was given to me as a child, coming from the culture that I come from and the background that I come from. Being a wife and being a mother were the only two identities that justified me as a woman. And I was given these identities not as a teenager, but as, it's like small things that, my parents used to say, like, you know what, learn to cut onions. What are you going to do when you cook, when you get married? And I didn't like cutting onions as a kid. And then, so it's like, that's the only thing, and then even when I was going to start my education, I was given the thing that your family is first. Your career is, not very important. And so I grew up. So they were teaching me what they were conditioned, based on.
Right.
So it's a
Yeah.
cycle. Yeah, it's a
Most
cycle. But
definitely.
we'll come to the cycle in the next segment. But I would like to talk. So I strongly believe that my only identity was to be a successful wife, a successful mother, and that's going to make me the ultimate woman. And but then, and I wanted all of that love. I wanted all of that appreciation. But I have realized over years that as women, we are very underappreciated for what we do, especially if we are not in the right environment. We're not in a
Yeah.
peaceful environment, and that's when I realized that the more and more and more I did as a woman for my family, and and in result, when I was not appreciated, when I was not accepted for who I was, I sort of I started to diminish myself to a level where I thought that, okay, maybe, I started going into that whole victim complex, that maybe I am doing something wrong, that I'm not being appreciated, or I'm not being accepted. So maybe there's something wrong with me. That is where it started. And I lived like this for years, where I started, lowering myself, lowering my life expectations, or even, to a point where I completely ended up all the dreams that I had for myself, all the little things, that something to a point where, I stopped asking for the little things that may give me joy. And I started just giving myself to family completely.
Mm.
And but the point here to really hold on to is that I was not aware of my conditioning, and I started diminishing myself. And that is straightforward coming from the recording, that because I think I'm not worthy of love, the only way that I have to be worthy of love is by letting go of portions that make me as a human being. And this is very deep. This is in so many levels. And when I had that awareness, and when to be loved, the only way I have to do this is to reduce myself, and to be accepted, I have to reduce myself. And when I lived so many years, and then I had a friend who came out of nowhere to me, and and again, this will not apply to everybody, because I believe in every human being is a different personality, right? And I'm
Yep.
a personality who has I'm a giving personality. My point of conversation or even connection with another person is purely out of empathy and compassion. So for me, I'm more of a giver. So my first point of thought will never be, how is this going to serve me? It's always going to be, how is this going to help somebody else? Or where are they coming from and how are they reacting? So my friend asked me one day, because, she started seeing physical changes on my face. She started seeing, like, the color of my face had, gone down, and I had these dark circles. I had started to lose weight, and she saw the physical impact of how a conditioning started driving my life for a very, very long time. And she asked me, that, Naasiha, when was the last time you did something that you absolutely loved, absolutely just for yourself. And that made me think. That made me think so much. And I didn't have an answer for it because it was years and I didn't remember the last moment. And when I could track back, I could only think of a time when I was in college or when I was in university. And that surprised me. And I was like, and then she asked me, and then she gave me, so I was holding a cup. I was sitting in front of her. I was holding a cup. And she asked me, you finished drinking your tea. Now pour out of it. She just said, pour out of it. I said, there's nothing to pour out of. What do I pour out? She's like, no, just pour. And I was like, there's nothing to pour. And she's like, exactly. This is how you're living your life. You're pouring out of that cup with nothing in it. And you have reduced yourself to nothing. How can you give? How can you pour? And how can you pour out of that empty cup? And this is a cliched statement that I hear everybody say it. But for me, that was the first time I heard it. I heard this 5 years back. That was the first time I heard it. And that was the first time that felt so profound to me. And I was like, what am I filling in for myself? And if I feel I'm unworthy, I am unworthy because this cup is empty right now. What worth am I filling in that cup so that I give it back to somebody else? Only if I am worthy for myself, I can be worthy for somebody else.
You got it.
And yeah, and that was the journey. And that was the starting point where I said, no, I have to start doing things for myself because I deserve to be loved. And when she asked me, what is it that you want to do? And I said, I wanted to do something for my mom at that point. And she's like, are you able to do it? I said, no, physically or emotionally, I'm not able to do it. And then she was like, well, why do you feel this way? And then I started like crying out and telling everything of why I feel this way. And then she pointed out, because she's my childhood friend, she knew all of my, stories. So she's like, she reminded me of something that happened in school and somebody who witnessed how I was treated. And she was like, maybe because of this, and I have always liked you as a person. You've been this beautiful person and you have allowed all of this to impact your thinking for so long that you accept this kind of behavior from the family around you, from the people around you, from the friends, that you're not able to connect with yourself or the other people in your life. And your environment has always been wrong or not right for you. And then I was like, no, first I need to take care of myself. And then I was like, what can I do to overcome this? She was my friend. She was not a therapist. She just loved me. And she gave me this profound thought in my head. And then I was like, what can I do? And then I found a mentor online, and I started understanding how to break those little beliefs and get to know myself. And the beginning point of anything to do with your mindset is awareness. And again, that's a huge word, and it's a huge journey in itself. But once you take that, you're aware of it. And then there are these little tools that I did. I started working on myself. I created a morning routine for myself. I started bringing back one activity that I love doing back into my life. And that sort of, it started creating a filter for what enters into my life as well, especially in terms of the words that were told to me, the things that would actually harm me and push me back into the same shell that I was. So when I started working on myself, that's when I started blocking out things that I didn't want to hear again. And that gave me the courage, because I was in a position where I needed courage to stand up for myself. That gave me the courage. And then I started working on the journey of healing and taking care of myself. And now I feel so abundant within me that I feel like I can give back to my mom, to my beautiful family, to beautiful set of friends that I have, and much more than that, to all the people out there who are struggling with the same way that I did.
Yeah.
And that has been my journey.
Awesome. Okay, so as you made these changes though, and you started filling your own cup,
Mhm.
how did people around you react? And, because from my experience, when that happens, that then takes you away from doing things for them. And so at
Mhm.
times there would be these roadblocks, and some relationships or
Mhm.
friendships I no longer have because of the changes that had to take care of myself. And some had to just take patience, and we had to go through the journey together in some ways. But what
Mhm.
was your experience with
Mhm.
that?
That's a beautiful, beautiful question. And there's something that I very strongly talk about is any journey you take, right? The success of that journey is measured with the kind of people that are around you, because we are social human beings. We
Yeah.
cannot exist in a solitary mode. We need, and I think we should have a very, very good set of people around us, or a great community. So when I started this, right now, you need to become you need to become mentally strong, very, very strong, because the roadblocks that you mentioned, right, they
Mhm.
are the filters for you. I always say, the way you move in your journey, you will have these beautiful filters. Okay. So I did have these filters where I understood, okay, so I am a giver. So that's innately inside me. I cannot change that part of me, and I don't want to change that part of me. That's the best part of me. But at the same time, I want to give myself first, and then I want to give it out to others. And in that journey, I realized few people calling me selfish. You are doing everything that you have to do, as a wife and as a daughter. You do everything as a friend, you do everything, but then you still call selfish. That's when you know that when somebody is not being very, very supportive of your healing journey, because first of all, it's first of all a celebratory moment when you come to that state of awareness, and you want to, and you want to heal. You don't want to live in that box forever.
Right.
And that's a celebratory moment. So when people start calling you names, and who are not going to stand by you, and who are not, so first, that's a filter, and you have to distance yourself, because again, you are going to go back into the same environment that is going to keep feeding you those conditions that you want to overcome.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, I did have, like, I cannot forget this moment in my life when my mom, okay, she herself has so many deep rooted childhood conditioning which defines her behavior even today when she's 60 years old. And but then for her to come and tell me, you know what, you have taken so much of pain and suffering in your life, that and I'm so proud of you that you want to help yourself. And she's been telling me the only way you can overcome is by taking care of yourself. And she said, I'm going to just let you be. You do your thing. Just give me a knock when you need the
Mm.
support. Just give me a knock. I'm here. I'm here for you. And sometimes, she took my aggression. She took my frustration. I went through a lot of emotional stages at that point. And she took all of that, and then she kept holding my hand. And this was my mother, but I had friends who did that. I had friends who showed me that, and it's a journey, because I call it a yo-yo journey, because it was not a very smooth sailing journey. It is not for anybody, because human mind is very complex. So I kept going back to it, but then I had to pull myself out of it. And I did that with this group of people. And some people were like, the good cop, bad cop. I had all kinds of roles that are being played around me. So I had people who made me feel like, you know what, you taking care of yourself is not right for you. You're being selfish, and how can you be a wife like this? How can you be a daughter like this? But at the same time, I had another group of people who told me that, you are going in the right way, and this is good for you. think about what you were before this whole downward spiral phase of your life. You were this great speaker, and people started reminding me of how successful I was before the whole downward spiral, and how and where do I want to go? And they started giving me visual reminders of what I actually wanted to do in life. And that's when I realized that sometimes that's how you have it in your control to, create that environment. And I chose those people and I started moving forward. But it took it was a process of resistance, but that built my strength over days and months and years. So that was the only way, you need to make that choice that this environment is not good for me. So sometimes you can temporarily take a distance, depending on the relationship it is. Sometimes, you can, once you are healed or you are in the process of healing, you are in a better communicative, state. So you can communicate it in a much better way to the people. And then if those people accept you for what you are, then, you can welcome back them in your life. But if they can't, then that's a filter. That's a filter which you need to, filter them out and move forward and keep those people who, end of the day, today I woke up watching a reel where it said, and this is specifically for spousal relationship, which mentioned a verse out of my holy book, and which said that before love, before anything, spousal relationships were created to live in peace. Peace is very important. And I think not just for spousal relationships, but for any relationship, as long as that kind of, setting is giving you peace and then eventually growth, that, that is the environment you want to be in. So that's what I did for myself.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. I love this. I've gone through some stages of growth, but a lot of times I go through them alone. And in some ways, I prefer it that way, right? Because it really gives me that, like, I need that time to just, be to myself as I go through this kind of butterfly effect, right? But there are times for sure that I wish that people did understand what I was going through. And a part of it is I also wish I had the words to express what I was going through. I didn't always have the words. I felt as if I didn't, always have that strong group of people, as you spoke of, during these different stages. Now in my life, because I've done a lot of cleanup, I have a amazing group of people, right? I cleared up that space where now I have it. So I guess that was a part of my journey, right? That I had to go through those things by myself to understand and the benefits of having, a good team around you. And I'm in that space now and it feels really good. So I'm glad to hear that as you were going through your journey, you were able to experience it with people that really understood you. You've mentioned a couple of times filters. Can you speak on that a little bit more about, your thoughts on having filters? Like, what does that mean exactly?
So when I say filters, somebody says that, like you mentioned, right? You are going through this whole journey alone. And the thing is, whatever I said about the group of people, it came later part. I started the journey alone. Sometimes the person that you can only depend on is yourself, right?
Yes.
And at that point, so now when I use the word filters, I'm going to use it both for your thoughts, emotions, and then for people as well. And they are directed from your thoughts and emotions. So once I created that awareness for myself that this thought of mine serves me, or this thought of mine is going to take me back into that emotional state of my conditioning, right? And it's a very, very strong conditioning. So that's when I created like a particular situation is going to be a filter for me. And like, for example, this is a little bit heavy. So because I was bullied and I was physically abused as a child, I had this habit of apologizing after I was abused. All right. Because I wanted to make, I wanted that approval. I wanted that safe space. And I didn't, again, that's coming from my deep rooted sense of I want to be worthy. I'm not worthy and I want people to love me. So I'm telling this as a kid, right?
Right.
So it became a habit for me that every time somebody physically abused me, I would go to them and like, I'm sorry if I did something wrong. I'm sorry that this happened. Let's just forget this. What is it? Can we work on it? This was a really, really bad behavior because when the abuse repeated in my life as an adult, I used to apologize every time after I was beaten up.
Wow.
Right. And when I had the awareness about that, that became my filter, when it's like that situation became my filter that now I'm abused. Now, I was just being verbally abused or I have been hit. And I take that step to have that, in my mind, there is a conversation going that, what, I don't want to have tomorrow in a bad way. So let me just, sort this out and I want to take care of this and I want a better day tomorrow. I immediately, when I had the awareness that this has become like a cycle where I go say sorry and then, it sort of gives the other people the impression that, we hit her, she comes and says sorry, it's okay, this behavior is, acceptable, yeah. So they will come back. When I understood that, I started stopping my feet back. I would not go and say, and it took a lot of energy out of me to not go and apologize. And that became a filter for me. That particular moment, it's a moment, it can be a situation. And so that this is all to do with your emotions, right? And then as I moved out of that environment and I started moving towards the healing, then the kind of people that I allowed in my life, right? They are these little sentences that would, it is a judgmental process because you start judging what is good for you. Right.
Okay.
And that judgmental process becomes a filter in a way that, like, I would say something like, this is what I dream about and this is what I want. And I faced three kinds of people, people who would say, you're a girl, you just, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. You just have to stick to this and do this. And this is what you're meant to do. And they say it in terms of a very, you're a woman and this is what you're supposed to do as a woman. There is one kind of people. The other kind of people I had where even if they don't agree with me, they would make the effort of coming and putting the point across and having a decent conversation with me. And then the other group of people were like full on support in a way that, what you want to do, X, Y, Z, you want to fulfill, you want to set up a business. So I had a group of people saying, you're a woman, you're not supposed to build a business. And then I had a group of people saying that this is your dream. You want to do this. I want to open a restaurant. It's a crazy dream. I don't know when I will be able to do it, but I know I want to do it and I will do it. So I had a group of people who said that, you know what, you can definitely do this. And this is your father's dream. And you can, but figure out how you're going to do this. What are the action plans? And when they started making that dream a reality for me, so then these people became filters. Like then it became a filter for me that now again, I will connect it back. You need these filter of emotions, thoughts, and how you feel about the situations or the people or the conversations that you're having. When a particular feeling gives you that state of peace and growth that I was talking about, that becomes your filter. Then you know that this person, I want to let them through the filter, or this person is not going to be that great and they don't have to come through the filter. I'm not even going to put up myself in that state where they are going to come through. I'm not going to even put myself in that situation where they're going to come through. Because I know my ways of giving that second chance or giving that multiple chances to people, no matter how bad they have been. So that's where I stopped rewarding bad behavior. And that was that was, that's the sense I use the word filter in. I hope I made some sense.
No, I love that. I am going to implement that in my life for sure. That the filters that's huge right there. We should create like a game called the filter game. And we have to like analyze, like, do we let them in or do we not? You're going to pass or fail the test, right? Like, I could think of a lot of different filters that that's a good one. I really like that. I like that a lot. So, two things I want to hit on before I let you go. First off, now that you are in the state that you're at, you are now in the space to be able to break the cycle for the next, right? And that's very exciting. But had you not done this work, right, it starts with you for you to be able to break the cycle. And I say this a lot just as I parent or guide my little boys that I have here. A lot of the times I am healing at the same time that I am trying to guide them a different way, right? So there may be a trigger. There may be a trigger. And I'm like, all right, I don't want to respond that way. First off, why would I have responded that way? Let me check in with myself. This is all happening like in the same minute. I'm then checking in. I'm checking in with myself. And I'm like, okay, hold on. Unlearn that. Heal that. What was that about? Why are you feeling? Oh my God. And then I turn to them and I'm like, okay, here's my new response, right? So I have all of these things kind of going on. But my point in saying that is that you cannot change the cycle unless you start working with yourself first, right? So now you've done the work and I am excited for you because it just means such a brighter future for everyone that you touch going forward, whether it's a client, a child, your family, your friends, whatever it may be, right? So it's not just a cycle within your family, you're touching people just even on this podcast. Like, and so then they have their own generational things going on in their whole family and their households, right? And that's the beauty of doing podcasts and, the beauty of social media and all of that is that you're touching people in these ways and it's just so broad, right? So once again, congratulations on doing the work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. And then my last point that I want to make to you is, so where are you now? Like now that you've done this work, which I'm guessing took a few years, I want to make it clear. I don't want the listeners to think that this is something that's done in a day or a month and you become impatient with yourself. Like, how long did it take you to get to where you were in a space of being mentally healthy?
I think 6 years and it's still a progress. It's still a progress, but it's a successful progress right now, I can say. It's not, see, we are human, like you gave that example, right? All of that self-talk and that mental awareness is kicking in the same second. You said the minute, I will say it's in microseconds it happens. And how sometimes, the same process, I'm sure, before you were aware about a lot of things, before you knew how to take care of a lot of things, I'm sure that same process would have taken days or months. There's so many people who dwell in that thought process, right? And they don't know. They say, I'm feeling stuck. I don't know how to move on. I don't know how to overcome this. And that's because they don't know what is in the root of it. They don't know what is that is stopping them, right? So for me, it was like the whole process took me so many years, and to come to that point where, as a human being, it is very natural that, the effects are going to still be there. But the thing is, you are so empowered with tools that help you do all of that in seconds and minutes. And then, you go back. So you do all these little things. So I have a morning routine, right? I write a journal, and then before I sleep, again, I write down of how, and I think particularly for me, to not go back to that same conditioning, I have to journal my emotions. And I actually give myself a pat on my back when I have been emotionally well that day. If I have emotionally reacted well to myself, to my mom or to my friend who I spoke that day, or I list down, how did I react to my client? How did I? So for me, these are these little tools where, you're still being human. And I always, always tell people, show yourself kindness and grace. Give yourself that grace, allow yourself to feel everything, and then take on that journey of taking care of yourself and empower yourself with these little tools. But take that first step of, building that awareness, take that help. It's okay. And, and it did take a lot of years, but, and now I think I'm so empowered. No, I know I am so empowered because see, even when I'm talking to you, I said the word I think, but then I changed it to I know, because in that split second, I didn't want to leave uncertainty in the word think. I want to give the certainty to myself that I know. Yeah. And I'm actually giving words as I'm speaking to the thoughts that are going on in my head, right? So it happens like this. And this journey, right? You mentioned like you are somebody who, you wanted to be alone for a bit and hold everything together for a bit, right? And understand yourself for a bit. Everybody starts this journey alone, but you don't necessarily have to be alone. You might not have the support of family. You might not have support of your friends, and that's okay. That's okay. But reach out and take help from, for the listeners with me today here, right? For the listeners who are connecting, take that help, extend, there are a lot of extended hands that are willing to hold you. Find that hand and, like myself or you do such great work of unlearning and, so just find that one person that touches your heart and connect with that person and start the journey of awareness.
I love this. Thank you so much. I think that's a great space to end this specific topic. It's absolutely beautiful. Thank you for joining me. Listeners, I would say if there's one thing to really ask yourself, when was the last time you did something that you loved? For yourself, right? That's a huge question. And if you can't answer that, or if it was back in the late 1900s, then you need to check in with yourself and get yourself together and really, really listen to this podcast several times to let things like sink in and understand some of the steps that you can take, and that it's also very normal to be in this space as well. There's nothing wrong with us. We're all just like, we're all here and unlearning and growing. And, that's just a part of it. So, as we've been talking, I'm thinking that once this goes live, I think we should probably do like an Instagram live. Like,
definitely.
Yeah, man, that would be so cool. And just allow people to kind of get on and we can talk about some things and they may have some questions to ask. So look out for that as well. Yeah, I think
I would love that.
Awesome. Yeah, the same week we drop this podcast, we're gonna figure out an evening to go Instagram live as well, and that would be cool. Yeah. So, by the way, what is your Instagram handle in case people want to follow you?
So it's the same. So if the podcast description will have my name. So it is Naasiha Sheikh. It's just my full name as one word. So NAASIHASHEIKH. So that's my Instagram handle at Naasiha Sheikh. So yeah, you can connect with me on there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope that you all found great gems in this. I know I did. I'm taking that filter thing and I'm using it in everything that I do in my life going forward. I love that. It's such an easy concept of figuring, out what's good for you and what's not good for you. So, hey, thank you so much for joining once again. And we will be back, or I will be back once again next week, and we'll have another very interesting and growing and healing topic to review with you all. So thank you so much. I am Dr. Zen Johnson, and you've been listening to Unlearning Life as We Know It podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Dr. Zen Johnson. If you haven't yet, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join me next week for another awakening conversation. Thank you for listening.